Hello, welcome to Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter, noted comic book anthropologist, and myself, Hannibal Tabu, the head comics reviewer at Bleeding Cool. We appreciate you joining us. We're here as much as we can be on Fridays around lunchtime to present a look at what came out and what went on. And this week we'll be talking about San Diego Comic-Con as well. So lots of interesting things going on. LA Comic-Con is also this weekend. I'm sorry if you thought you were going to see me there. That was a typo. And let's just jump right into it. Stanford, you were in San Diego. You risked the Omarion variant and went out there. What happened?
Well, you know, sometimes you got to risk your life for the cause.
It's an icebox where your comics used to be. Go ahead.
I think one thing that was really interesting is that, you know, I also am involved in helping to organize some local cons, and we've been fretting over how it is that you make these events safe, and so I was kind of really paying attention to, like, what are they doing? How am I going to be safe here, right?
How indeed.
And I'm going to say I'll start with just sort of in a nutshell, you know, San Diego, you know, the people who run San Diego Comic-Con, they made it as safe as they could. They made me feel as confident as I could feel. Mm-hmm. And then my hotel tried to kill me.
Wait, what?
You heard me.
The plot twist. How did your hotel try to kill you, Stanford?
You know, you get on an elevator with your mask on. You know, you're vaxxed up, you're boosted up, and then you have like 8 unmasked people from the Narcotics Anonymous crowd coming over and just squeezing into the elevator with you.
What floor were you on?
The 23rd floor.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I say it kind of in jest, but not really, because that was happening all of the time. I tried avoiding getting in an elevator with unmasked people just by politely letting people go by and waiting for the empty elevator, and the empty elevator almost never came. I would spend 20, 30, 40 minutes just watching people go by.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll walk up. Then I remembered I was on the 23rd floor.
Wow.
I went to the hotel, and, you know, not to mention any names, Manchester Grand Hyatt. But I had a conversation with the person at the front desk. Had a conversation with the manager, and they kept coming back with, well, you know, if you're traveling, you're masked and you're vaccinated anyway. We can't really enforce anything.
That's a lie.
And I thought that this was just the Manchester Grand Hyatt. But then I started asking everybody about their hotels.
Yep.
Same thing. And I actually did stay the last night at a different hotel from the Manchester Grand Hyatt, a boutique hotel. Mm-hmm. That was the one where the janitor without the mask just got in the elevator with me. And so this is the thing, and this is what really struck me, right? You contrast this with what Comic-Con did, which I thought was admirable, right?
Yeah.
You know, I've been to every in-person Comic-Con, including this one, since 1999.
Okay.
I started going when I was in utero.
Ooh.
And I just kept going, right? And so,
wow.
Yeah, you know, finished that doctorate at 5. I've been on the fast track. So
I can't with you right now. I just can't with you right now.
But I have been to that many Comic-Cons, and so I go up. I'm with a friend. And I see these lines. I can't figure out quite what they are, and I realize they're to these tents. So what it is you have to go to this tent before you can even go into the building.
Right.
And at the tent, you present your proof of vaccination, or your proof of a negative test that had to be like less than 24 hours old. And if you couldn't do either of that, they sent you into a line to get a test, right? And so if you get through that line, they give you a red band, right? And they, you know, one of those, you know, those bands that when you take them off, you break them.
Yeah.
So they gave you a red band. You needed that red band to go into Hall H to pick up your badge. And so then you get your badge, and they were actually a little a little more merciful as far as the badges were concerned. I'll get back to you later on that story as well. But then from there, when you go to Hall H, from Hall H onto the convention floor, because they turn Hall H into the receiving area for the badges.
Weird.
You know, usually that's on the second floor, right?
Yep.
Okay, so to leave Hall H to go onto the floor, you have to present your badge, and you have to present your band, and you have to be masked. All three.
Nice.
And so you walk onto the convention floor. I mean, one thing they did, and I know it's a trick that you can do when you're throwing an event at a convention hall is not pay for the carpet, right? Because if you don't pay for the carpet, it creates more ambient noise in the room. So the room actually feels like it's got more people in it, right? Because you got more noise.
I didn't know that. That's good.
Yeah. So when they lay those red carpets, that actually reduces the noise because you don't have the thud, and it also absorbs the sound from it, so you don't have as much of an echo.
Logical.
So what they did was but the downside is that it's a little harder on your feet, harder on your back, right? Mm-hmm. But they had no carpet, so there's a little more ambient noise than there should have been, which was good because they also did widen the walkways, so it was wider walkways, and even when they were full, and I put that in air quotes, you had plenty of elbow room. And now anybody who's been to Comic-Con before knows that that's the place where you lose people. If you're walking with a whole ass grown adult on a chain, you will lose them because the crowd is constant, right?
Yes.
If you bring your kids because you're tired of being a parent, right?
That's mean and not necessarily true. I kept my kids; they're still with me. I'm pretty sure they're the same kids.
Are you sure? Because I know you lost them and had to find them.
I didn't. Okay. I lost my wife. My wife had the kids.
And so your wife kept hold of the kids the entire time? I don't think so. I think part of the reason she disappeared was because she got spread out from the kids. She found the kids, then she came back to you, and then it was just fine.
I don't remember. Saying, it was 70 years ago, back before the pandemic.
Okay, so I'm just saying, I don't know of anybody who's gone there that didn't lose their kids.
Okay.
They found them eventually because Comic-Con people are a pretty friendly bunch, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to hurt you. They're going to like you if they see it. I mean, if a kid gets lost.
Other than the one stabbing. Other than that.
Oh yeah, but that was different. That was over Spider-Man.
I mean, gotta do what you gotta do. All right.
I mean, it's not a con if you don't get stabbed in the eye with a pencil, right?
Then I've never been to a con.
Okay, neither have I. But the thing is that with all of this, I mean, it was just very spread out. I mean, and that was kind of nice. It was kind of interesting to be at a San Diego Comic-Con and to have people actually be relaxed, right? Now, the vendor profile was not San Diego Comic-Con type vendor profile.
Okay.
I mean, it felt like I would say it felt like a really well-stocked Wizard World. It had they had a lot of like comic related stuff. The vendors were excited, but San Diego Comic-Con, the way I like to think of it is, you go to a Wizard World Comic-Con to find comic related things that are hard to find, right? Fair. So it's like so it's vendors who have some way to get a hold of specialty things. And they're primarily retailers, right?
Yes.
Whereas at San Diego Comic-Con, you have a few of those, but it's dominated by vendors who have a hookup, who have a connection, who can get you something exclusive, something that you won't be able to get out in the rest of the world for another 4 to 6 months. You know what I mean? Or something that's been sold out in the rest of the world. I mean, you see what I mean? Like there's just a different level in terms of what was there. I mean, so it was clear that they weren't, and it was clear that there wasn't a high entry fee. You didn't see any major publishers, and you didn't really see many of the minor publishers. Like the only publisher I remember seeing was I saw Aftershock had a few people, right? But they're a very small press. You know, I didn't see Abrams. I didn't see any of the big ones or any of the ones that are like, or even any of the press. There's the comic press, and then there's kind of the publishers that also sell a lot of comics, like an Abrams. Didn't see them there either.
Got it.
I didn't see any media companies, so there was no Warner Brothers booth. There was, you know what I mean. So there's almost nothing going on in terms of film and television. You know, in some ways it was straight up comic and comic adjacent stuff. It was. I felt like I was going into a giant comic book shop. That was a little light on the comics.
Okay.
As far as Artist Alley, I mean, there really weren't any of the regulars. You know, like Artist Alley at Comic-Con is usually like, I mean, we're talking like, it's Walter Simonson. It's, you know what I mean? It's,
you can't risk Walter Simonson that way. Come on now.
Right. So, but I'm just saying they weren't there. So it was really, it was interesting because it was primarily up and coming comic creators, who are like, oh, I have a chance to be at a San Diego Comic-Con special edition, right? So there was that. Now this didn't make for a terrible experience. It just wasn't a San Diego Comic-Con experience, right?
Yep.
And then, but this is the thing that was interesting. Stepping outside the convention floor, right? Mm-hmm. And stepping, right out front. You know how they block off the streets in front? They still block the streets off, but you could tell there was no need to block off the streets because there was no lines, there was no crush of people. It just had this kind of like, oh my gosh, they shut down Comic-Con, or they haven't opened it up yet. And then you go across, and NBC, I'll give them credit, they were the only company that did something outside. They had a little set for that Show La Brea right next to the Tin Fish, where you can get your beers and tacos.
Oh yeah.
At a really good price back in the old days. See, that went up by 30%, by the way. So the place where you used to be able to get beer and tacos for like under $20 is now $30. But yeah, it's like they did have a special like street taco thing that you could get for $11, but I mean, we're talking it was mini street tacos. Mm-hmm. 3 of those for $11. So all that happened was that you ate one of those and then you were hungry for more. I still went there multiple times because Tin Fish is kind of my regular thing for decades.
Yeah.
But that was the vibe. And that's what I thought was really interesting. The hotels were desperate to keep their customers, even if it meant killing them. And there wasn't the fanfare outside that you're used to. It's like I actually could see what the buildings looked like without having advertisements for movies plastered on them. And I'm not sure whether that was cool or disappointing. It just wasn't Comic-Con, right?
It was different. Yeah, it's weird.
It was like, one of the beauties of Comic-Con is that it takes over the entire. It takes over that area of San Diego.
True.
Like you can't walk in. Like you walk into a restaurant and it's cosplay, or the restaurant has been remade into the set of some sci-fi channel show, right? It's all of that, and that all of stuff was gone. Now, one thing that was a surprise to me and I thought was really interesting was what was happening upstairs with the panels.
Okay.
So remember how I said on the first floor there's like an absence of like star power of media companies, of all of that, right? So think about that. Now imagine what that does to the nature of the panels.
You would get lower, like less known names, I would presume.
Not just less known names, but they were content-driven panels.
Oh, that's actually more interesting.
It was more interesting. Yeah, like I mean, so I have this rule that I try to only limit myself to 2 talks at Comic-Con, because one time I gave more than 2, and I was hurting, right? I ended up doing 4. I ended up getting called in last minute to help moderate a spotlight on John Jennings, and so but the thing is that like all of the panels were very much thesis driven panels.
Okay.
And that was really nice. Whether they were put on by Comic Arts Conference, which is primarily like college level academic stuff, or they were being put on by Joe Smith next door, who submitted an application and got accepted. They were thesis driven panels, and that was really nice. Like usually you get titles that make it sound thesis driven at Comic Con, but when you go in, anything can happen.
Yeah. But
this was really I could see people in the panels really hungering for real connection. I saw a lot more people in the panels than a lot less empty seats in the panels than I would normally.
Oh
see
yeah, absolutely.
For the thesis driven panels, right? Because sometimes thesis driven panels, it's not that nobody will come, but a room that sits. The room that sits 100 people will fill 25, 30 seats, right? Now it's like you have a thesis-driven panel in a room that seats like 300, bringing in 200. That was nice to see. And I mean, there's this one psychology panel put on by Scott Jordan, where they were talking about issues. He's a psychologist, and there was this other psychologist on the panel. They were talking about loss and stuff having to do with the narrative. And this guy gets up and just discloses very naturally that he's at San Diego Comic-Con Special Edition, and that this was the first time that he's been there without his father because his father has passed. And it was just this moment of you're like, wow. Like it was everything felt much more personal there, right? So that was the thing. It was, I'm not going to say it was good or bad. It was just off to the side somewhere. I felt like I felt like this was special edition, not San Diego Comic-Con.
I can totally dig that. Yeah. And I'm actually curious because they're noting that the first case of the Omarion variant came out of Anime NYC, and that this weekend they're doing LA Comic-Con with an interesting group of people who are just honestly probably just desperate to get out of the house, honestly. Do you think, based on what you saw, do you think that this is a good idea? Do you think it's a good idea to be hosting these large events and taking this essential risk with something new on the horizon, and Spirit knows what's behind that?
Well, I have a lot of mixed feelings about the Omicron variant, right? Is that we've been told that there's this variant out there, and we don't really have a lot of information on it, right?
Right.
At the anime convention, they had 50,000 people, and they have one person.
Yeah, one reported.
One reported, but they also have four other reported cases in New York.
Yes.
And so here's the thing. After being at San Diego Comic-Con Special Edition, I'm thinking to myself, probably got it in the hotel.
Yeah. That's real talk.
And that's the thing. Probably got it in the hotel. Probably got it in the restaurant, because my understanding is that the anime convention required everyone to be vaccinated. They didn't allow you to do a negative test.
Oh. Yeah.
But even if you could do it with just a negative test and not be vaccinated, the person who came up with the variant is vaccinated. So I don't know how to process that. Here's the thing. I don't think that I'm not hearing enough to think that the events are safe if they're if it's only vaccinated people, right?
Okay.
I'm not hearing enough there, but I still don't think it's a good idea to be doing an event with 50,000 people. You and I had this conversation, gosh, like 6 months ago, where I said the problem with, and I used 100,000 just because I was like, my math is bad, so it's easier to figure out. So you got 100,000 people there, and let's say vaccinated, you have, you're down to having a 3% chance of getting the virus. So that's 3,000 people.
That seems a lot.
You know, and so the problem is it's the tyranny of large numbers. Like you could drop your transmission rate to 1%. That's 1,000 people walking away with the virus.
Mm-hmm. That's 500 people at Anime NYC.
Right. You drop that down to 0.5%. You know, like half of 1%. And you're still talking about 250.
Yep.
Like it still feels like a super spreader event. And I've been riveted by this. I was watching MSNBC earlier today, and it was like Craig Melvin was on there, and they had somebody reporting from right outside the Javits Center. Mm-hmm. Because it's connected to an anime event that happened 2 weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. And Craig Melvin at the end is like, he just stops, and he has this really twisted look on his face. He's like, 50,000 people. And I'm like, that's why you probably don't want to do this. Because there's no way that you don't get skewered in the press over this.
Yeah.
There's, there's no way that it doesn't look bad. And so yeah, I mean, one case at an event with 50,000 people is not a super spreader event. But the way it's being covered, I mean, I guarantee you, they're paying really close. All the news stations are paying really close attention to Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle right now, and Los Angeles Comic Con down in Los Angeles.
Yep.
And when it comes over, when C2E2 comes over next week, everyone's going to be watching it like a hawk. Let there be 2 cases out of 30,000 people, which still has it safer which still has the event being safer than your local grocery store, right? And it's going to be, oh my God, look at what these weird, dirty, smelly people are doing.
Dang, you got to talk about them like that?
No, I'm just talking about the way the news is covering it. It's an anime con. Oh my gosh, you know what I mean? It's just spoken about in a weird way. They're not talking about it like, okay, these were people who were coming to enjoy themselves at a wedding, at a joyous event. They were at anime.
Ooh, never to drop the register of the voice. Well,
yeah.
Okay, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I'm not at LA Comic Con. I won't be at C2E2. I won't be at Emerald City. I won't be at lots of things because I know that I'm gonna be safe sitting here in my house.
Yeah.
And I've made those decisions for my family and for the things we have going on. I respect other people got to do stuff. I know I was talking to Frank Thierry, who's a writer for Marvel and DC and several other places, and it's his birthday this weekend. And he was like, oh, man, I'm really sorry I'm not going to get to see you the one time I'm in L.A. I'm like, yeah, but L.A., he's like, yeah, I totally get it. I totally get it. Because with him, he's got somebody immunocompromised in his household. So after this convention, he's going to stay in a hotel for a week. And then take a test, because that's what he has to do to protect his family. But he also has to make money because this is his main gig. So he's got the convention. It's he doesn't get danger pay for that.
Yeah, I had a similar conversation with Derek Robertson. We were going back and forth about it via text, and he's like, and it's like what you don't realize is that a lot of the comic creators, there are a lot of comic creators, even especially a lot of the more known ones, the ones that are getting all these book these book and Hollywood deals. A lot of them are the primary breadwinner for their families.
Yeah. Which
means if they're sick for 2 weeks, ain't no cheddar coming in that household.
Yep.
And so that's the risk that they're also managing. It's like, okay, I get to go to this con, but forget about whether or not I bring anything back because I'll have to go in the hotel, blah 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 blah. But I won't be working for a couple of weeks.
That's all bad.
And I'm a freelance. I'm still ultimately a freelancer. I don't get to I gotta also pay for the health insurance. I gotta pay for all this stuff. And so yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they're not going out. I mean, my participation in these conventions is actually primarily on the on the panel side. So for me, it was a very different type of decision, right? You know, I go upstairs in my full body condom. I'm on a stage separated from the people, and then I kind of sneak out, right? And then I step outside, take the body condom off, stuff it in the garbage can, set it on fire, move on with my life, right? But if you're a creator, you're sitting at a booth, and you got everybody coming up to you, everybody.
Yeah, it's a lot. So this is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu. We have talked about the experience of San Diego Comic-Con Special Edition. Let's talk about some actual books now. Let's dig into what's actually going on with the actual publishing side. So we got wow, so much to talk about. Let's try to get through this. Where do you want to start, Stanford?
Well, I mean, let's start with Marvel. You know, unfortunately, I read a lot of Marvel books this week.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Amazing Spider-Man 80.
It's not amazing. It's not interesting. It's not. Ben Reilly is not capturing the imagination. There was a better book with him, which was The Death of Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, which had Black Cat guest starring. I really enjoyed that. But this, yeah, I literally barely remember what happened in this book, and that's not a good sign.
All I know is he was on drugs most of the time. He was experiencing all sorts of hallucinations, and it still wasn't interesting.
Yeah, holodeck episode. Hate those.
You know, I mean, he's just sliding his way into oblivion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to,
I'd call it a meh myself.
I'd give it a low meh.
Yeah.
You know, but I won't I'll give it a regular meh because there was worse.
There was, and we'll get to it.
Yeah. So what about Death of Doctor Strange White Fox?
Death of Doctor Strange White Fox. I was confused because there's another character who I thought this was, and because there's a Korean spy character that I thought this was super interesting that played along with Black Cat. If this is this was not done anywhere near as cool, because that character was cool and self-possessed and, you know, knew secrets and had swagger. And this character was just kind of, oh, I'm not really sure what I am. I'm trying to figure out if I'm Naruto or what, you know. So, I mean, I got what was going on, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it as much as previous appearances of the character, I think. And I don't think it had anything to do with the actual storyline. I don't think it had anything to do with Doctor Strange's death or anything relevant therein.
Yeah, I felt it was there just to be there.
Yep.
And you know what? I don't spend my money on there just to be there. Meh.
Nor should you. This is a meh as well. This is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself. We've gone through Amazing Spider-Man and Death of Doctor Strange White Fox. I take it you're going to head over to Yancey Street next?
Yep, Fantastic Four 38. I thought the concept for this one was was really interesting. Like, you know, it's essentially we're going to court to fight over custody of children in the superhero world.
I appreciate that conceptually, but literally everything done by the Fantastic Four was stupid. Every decision, everything they said, everything they did was like, have you seriously never even watched Law and Order or LA Law or any legal show? What are you doing? Why are you so stupid? Reed's supposed to be the smartest man, the smartest man in Marvel Comics, and he's a big dummy, and that's not entertaining. And to watch Jennifer Walters like, no, stop, wait.
Well, it's also like they missed the whole part where like one person says, I don't know, being around all these superpowered people, maybe that's child endangerment. Yeah. You know, I mean, like I said, I appreciated the concept. I don't think the execution was worthy of it. Now, appreciating the concept doesn't mean I think it was the best concept in the world.
True.
But they could have done something really interesting with that. And I felt like I was reading a missed opportunity.
Yeah, and for me, every time, because the Wizard was the one in court making these arguments, every time that they made an argument with him, I was like, I saw 27 ways to disassemble that argument. Like, I was like, I'm like, this is so easy. What are you doing? And you would see Jen Walters stand up and try to do something, and then the Fantastic Four would do something stupid. And she'd be like, oh, no. And the judge was like, I'm not here for your shenanigans. I'm not here for it. And this strong, superpowered black woman who's decided to have superhuman justice going on there, that was interesting. I want to know more about her, but I got nothing. Everything here that I got was dumb, and I didn't enjoy it, so this is a low meh for me.
Well, I'm going to be honest. The other thing that I'm thinking about is, in terms of it being a missed opportunity, is anybody who has had any dealings with family court or any type of court, like the first thing that you realize when you're involved in it is that it drags out. It takes forever.
Yeah.
You go to court. I mean, what really happens is you go to court, you say that you make your pleadings, and then they come up with a schedule. And then you come into court, and then you have a hearing on a couple of matters. Then you go back. Then you go. You're constantly going in and out, right? Yep. That, to me, that could be a really interesting story. Like imagine doing a court case the way it really goes, which is it happens over time. Like
you'd have to do that as a miniseries because they don't have the Fantastic Four didn't have the patience for that here.
Exactly, but what would be really fun about it is you could have them go to the Phantom Zone and then get back in time, like 2 days before they have to go to the next trial. So they're rushing to get ready for the next hearing, right? And then you could have the opposing counsel be like, wait a second, didn't you just get back from another dimension? What have you been exposed to? Now that's in danger. You know what I mean? Like that would be really interesting to use that as a framing device to kind of deconstruct what it means to be running off to all these places when you're engaged, when you're also trying to engage the real world.
I think you're asking way more than this was capable of.
Exactly, but alas, that's not what this was.
Yeah.
So I think that on that respect, I mean, like I said, it was an interesting concept. It was uninteresting to have it put this way. It didn't even adhere to, you're right, the Law and Order, the Law and Order timeline, let alone anything remotely close to the way things operate in real life, which I think could have been much more interesting.
Moving on, comic books this week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu, head reviewer at Bleeding Cool. What is next up on this Marvel thing before we dive into some other books?
Is there some way we can get out of the world of meh?
I've been asking myself that question for years, Stanford.
Well, okay. Well, unfortunately, we're going to be stuck in there for a little while because we're doing Winter Guard number 4.
Oh, you found this one a meh?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me why.
I got what it was trying to do. It had a little interesting twist at the end, but I feel like I ran out of gas with the last issue.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I feel like there's something I don't like the pacing of the book. There's just something about it where I felt like I spent I went through too much to get to where it ended.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I could totally see that. And for me, to see Yelena Belova essentially get benched for the whole last issue was a missed opportunity for me. The struggle between Perun and the weird, dark-shaded god, I'm not really sure where that came from because that struggle wasn't really there, and it just kind of popped up, and I'm not really sure. I wasn't really vibing with it. It seemed like it was like, oh crap, this is the last issue. Run, do a whole bunch of stuff, and it cut here and it cut there, and but it didn't really gel together. It didn't really click like this was an organic storyline. When I think of how great the Dracula issue was, I was like, by comparison, it's like this is almost like it's not even by the same people, but
right.
It is. It's the same creative team. It's just I think overall this issue tried really hard to. They saw they were doing really well and got nervous at the end and didn't stick the landing. And that's unfortunate for me. So I have to rate this one a meh, despite the fact that I was really pulling for this to pull out a strong finish.
And what do you think of New Mutants 23?
Even in the book, the characters themselves says, oh, no, not this again. They're treading old ground with new people that's, but not actually changing anything in their approach. That I found the whole storyline a needless side quest. One that does not illuminate, one that does not help me, one that does not move the characters forward, one that does not advance any larger plot. And as such, this would be a very low meh for me because I just found it like This is a waste of my time. This is a waste of my time. This is a waste of these talents.
Well, okay, so let's stay in Marvel and let's officially leave the world of meh. Trial of Magneto #4.
It definitely wasn't meh. It was infuriating. Oh my god.
I give this a solid IWMTB.
Okay, I got lost on the letters. What are we doing?
I want my time back.
Yeah. That's totally fair because the entire recent. I texted for the people listening. I texted Stanford in the middle of reading this book and said, "Okay, now I hate Wanda because this book is called The Trial of Magneto, but there is no trial because there is no crime. There is no crime because nothing actually happened. All of this was a big, elaborate, drawn-out thing to do nothing as a kind of a therapy session, I guess. I don't know, but I object to it vehemently. I'm insulted by it. I think this was given the opportunity that we have on Krakoa to tell new stories. I think this was enormously a bad choice.
I agree. I think that it's not even that. It's the trial of Magneto over the death of Wanda. Wanda ain't dead, and not only is she not dead by this one, but there's like 3 versions of her that are not dead.
Yeah.
You know,
and one of them is the culprit. Spoilers. Sorry.
Right. You know, but culprit of what?
Of wasting our time?
Yeah. You know, I mean, and that's the thing. I'm like, and you know what was also funny? Magneto didn't show up in this one. I mean, he was in like 4 or 5 panels.
Yeah. He I don't believe he has a spoken word, I believe.
Yeah. So
whack.
Yeah, so I'm just like, you know, WARD, what are you doing? You know, just like, what are you doing?
I don't know. That's the Marvel output, at least so far. Like I said, there was one Marvel book I really did enjoy, which was Death of Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, which surprised me. It really surprised me, but, you know, if you don't get it, you won't miss anything unless you really like Black Cat or really like Ben Reilly. It's good for what it is, but it doesn't outshine the weight of the crossover pulling it down that's doing nothing.
Right. Yeah, I can see you on that. I mean, I mean, part of me was thinking, well, maybe I was just in a bad mood.
Maybe.
And then I tried like rereading some of the stuff again. And I was like, oh no, I was in a good mood, and this is how it was stolen.
Let's move on with comic books this week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu.
I don't think I can. I'm bitter about this. This was a bitter week.
You can't continue with the reviews. Do you have to stop? Do we need to tag in someone else? Danford Carpenter?
We may have to.
But
I guess
we didn't get to some good stuff, though.
Okay, let's do DC Comics.
Okay, where do you want to start?
Human Target #2.
Do you want to start or should I?
I think this is a beautiful book.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I mean, Human Target, when he's done well, it's like something. It really should feel like something out of the late 50s, early 60s, right?
Yes.
It just completely has that vibe. The color scheme was like so not comics, but still seemed to work so well in terms of this piece. And I felt like I was just caught in one of those, noir detective stories that takes place out in Miami.
Yes.
During the day.
Yes.
I mean, this thing had mood. This thing had a look. It had beautiful pacing, luscious textures. I almost forgot I was in Chicago during the winter time. But the writing was still kind of like, eh.
Well, here I have to disagree with you slightly. Because don't get me wrong, and I'll say this very clearly, Tom King has hurt me before. We had Heroes in Crisis. We had Strange Adventures. There's been some things that have gone really, really wrong, and I'm very, very upset about them. However, the kind of breezy, noirish feel contrasting the California coast and this, I mean, they even had one of those, like, I mean, like, I could totally see Gregory Peck in this role. That's how, this was for me. But to capture that vibe so well, and what they did with a very unexpected femme fatale. Not somebody that I would expect as one, but really worked as one, which was Ice from the Justice League International. And, I was really worried they were going to ruin the Bwahaha era. I was really worried about it. But instead, this parts it out. This deconstructs it in a way that doesn't touch the actual days of. It doesn't actually change things. And there was three moments where I was stunned by the writing. I was literally gagged. I said, there's some women you can say no to. There's a line where it says 40 degrees, and there's a point where Christopher Trent says, Jesus. And and I was like, we acting up today. We doing this. Okay.
Right.
So I really enjoyed a lot of things. With what's on the page, I thought this issue was a winner. It sweeps you off your feet and punches all the right buttons down to its wonderfully characteristic closing, which was so Christopher Chance. What I think is that in the same way that I was very gung-ho about Heroes in Crisis #1, I think this may betray me down the line. I may look back at this and say, how dare you? How dare you make me feel that way and then do this? That's totally possible, but that's future Hannibal's problem. And I'm not him yet, so.
Well, I'm going to say this. When I say the thing about the writing that got me is, I believe everything that you say described how I felt, right, about the writing.
Yes.
But you left out the one thing that King seemed to leave out, right?
Okay.
The plot didn't really move forward.
I would disagree with you slightly. I think the plot did move forward because we have a target now. He very openly started investigating someone without them noticing that he was investigating them, and made them. I don't want to spoil it, but I thought that was a very clever way because he's now in. He's now in, and he's looking at the actual Justice League.
Well, that's true. That's true. But I also feel like in terms of movement of the plot forward, you could have done that in 2 pages. I felt like this was very heavy on. It was very heavy on mood, which I loved. And the thing is, I'm still recommending this book.
Okay.
I'm just saying that like my, like you, I've also been hurt before. Mm-hmm. And not just before. I've been hurt recently.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I still haven't recovered from what he did to Mr. Terrific.
It's not right.
Yeah, I mean, I feel insulted. It's hard to feel insulted for a made up character in 2 dimensions, but he managed to do that.
Yeah.
Now, I've liked a lot of his other stuff, so I'm not going to sit here and say. I just felt like okay, so I'm a little. Like I said, I feel like there are also some great character beats, like this whole deconstruction of Ice's origin.
Yeah.
Beautiful, right? I mean, and this whole thing of like what he kept doing, and this is very much his thing, right? He shows you this idealized version of someone, and then says, "Oh, by the way, this is what really happened," right?
Which, unfortunately, is canon. It's actually canon.
Right. It is, but it's like I'm like, oh, but so here's the thing. I was kind of expecting that in the writing, But here's the thing. I gotta recommend this book because even if it didn't move the plot forward, and it did a little bit, I got to give it a little mercy on that. It made me forget I was in winter in Chicago.
Yeah,
it was that level of mood. I mean,
let me ask you this: when you were reading this, did you get just a hint, just a taste of Darwin Cook? Like, just a hint of, oh, this would have been Darwin. This would have been him. He would have, And Greg Smallwood does it. Greg Smallwood does a fantastic job evoking that same vibe, that same energy, that in a different way. That's not the Darwin Cook way, but in the same spirit, if you see what I'm saying.
Yes. I mean, for me, it's the color palette. It's like, we got a color palette of like, on some of my favorite pages, it's all orange and purple. Mm-hmm. orange, purple with flecks of white, a little spot of green here. And what I loved is like these interior scenes where he shows the sun peeking through the blinds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the way he uses that to give a claustrophobic interior space a sense of motion.
Mm-hmm. It's really
good. I mean, that was a masterclass in how you use comics in an engaging way to tell a story about two people talking.
Yeah. It really, I felt the tension. The tension was really good. I love that. So, yeah,
Yes.
I would recommend to buy this as well. Even though a future version of me may be looking back at me and insulting me, I'm here now.
Right. Yes, I agree. So now we're officially out of the land of meh with the Human Target. I mean, I feel like I guess I'm skipping over to what I think would I'll skip over to my favorite book of the week.
Oh, okay.
Wonder Woman Historia.
I got a real Promethea vibe out of this book.
Yep.
I felt like there were like someone was holding my head back and just pouring things into my eye. Like my eyes are being waterboarded with information in a good way. But it's a heady book. It's a heavy book, and I love the treatment of Zeus. I love what they did there. A lot of the things that a lot of people will the Comicsgate crowd is going to hate this book, no doubt.
Oh yeah,
and that's part of why I'm happy with it. So,
especially Aphrodite.
Yeah.
Goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, passion, goddess of appetites, and she got some real curves, some serious curves, right?
And I believe darker skin, if memory serves.
You definitely, I think what was interesting is that they brought color to the Greco-Roman pantheon in a way that few have done before.
Yeah, take that, Harry Hamlin. Sorry.
Yup. I mean, I also felt like. I really felt like I was reading Phil Jimenez's love letter to the Amazons.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, it was just so like. I mean, and I mean, full disclosure, I've known Phil for a long time. I love Phil, and I could hear and feel him throughout this book in a way that you rarely do when you have an artist take over a book, like this whole thing with the peacocks and the peacock capes and usually when you deal with a pantheon of gods, it's like the goal is to make it so that all the gods look kind of similar, right?
Yep.
And what he did was he actually these gods had very, very different looks.
Yeah.
And looks that were indicative of their domains.
Yes.
And I thought that was really amazing. I thought that like even like there's this one beautiful splash page that is nothing but urns and vases.
So many splash pages.
And what I'm going to say what I really loved about this is the economy of words. Like, we're talking super big pages with splashes all over the place and only like 4 or 5 word balloons.
Yeah.
And it was like every word mattered.
I don't think I enjoyed this book as much as you did because I liked it, but I was like I said, I felt a little overwhelmed by the visual grandeur of it. I would want to sit with it more. So I guess that's a recommendation. I would definitely want to sit with it more and take more time with it than I had because I don't think the regular comic book amount of reading time is enough to get into the details in the art alone, let alone the writing. So yeah, I guess I would go with the recommendation for this as well because it gives you a lot for a comic book.
And even in the back, I mean, the back matter is interesting because they establish that there's 6 goddesses that are tagged to the creation of the Amazons, and each of the 6 goddesses creates 5 Amazons.
And I noticed that they took Hermes out of the equation, whereas he used to be a big part of it.
Right. And I think what's cool is the back matter actually does does a picture and a description of each of the 30 Amazons.
Yep.
Like how often do you read a comic where you get to the end and they do like little splashes of 30 characters and give you like some decent information about each one, and you actually want to dig in?
Not often enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're right, the Comicsgate people are going to hate this, but good. Yeah. I mean, what's nice is that it's not just that the Amazons came in all different colors. Mm-hmm. They came in all different shapes.
Yep.
All different shapes and colors, and that was nice to see as well.
Take that, Patty Jenkins.
Yep.
Sorry. All right, this is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu. We got about 2 more books left to do, I believe.
Yes. Another one I'm going to say before I even say the name. It's another buy. Hardware number 3.
Mm-hmm. Hardware number 3 from Milestone Comics. Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, Hardware's still on the run, and and he gets a chance to stop in to Edwin Alva's former partner.
I think developing this character was a fantastic choice because it closes up a lot of the holes in what was happening with Alva and how he developed all of this. It really puts a nice Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak kind of spin to things that I really appreciated.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, now this feels real. Hang on one second.
Sure.
And so there was a lot of things I really enjoyed about that. I appreciate I appreciate the creativity and the flexibility that Curtis brings to how the things he does to adapt. Okay, I'm doing it from a car place now. Now I'm doing it from this. Oh, this is the first proper lab. I'm really about to get down. So I feel the urgency happening in this book. I feel that this is moving forwards like a thriller, and I really appreciate that.
But I also like how they did that like low key crossover with Static.
Yes.
Where they're like, oh yeah, and we went looking for him, and all we found was this kid with electrical powers. I was just like, oh okay.
Yeah, we believe in continuity here, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where it could have been a throwaway. It could have been on the editing room floor of any other book.
Yeah.
But the fact that they didn't put it on the editing room floor actually made this book that much more interesting.
Agreed.
Like if you're gonna say that Curtis Metcalf and Virgil Hawkins know each other, then you got to follow it through, and they're following it through in both books.
Yep.
To give them to give them their props.
All true.
Yeah. So yeah, this is definitely a buy. I definitely enjoyed it. And our last book, an independent.
Oh boy.
The Me You Love in the Dark.
Ooh, I looked at the cover. I was like, oh no, I don't even want to open this because I know what's got to happen. And okay, let's go see it. And I opened it. So my biggest disappointment is the dead black person. Sorry.
Yes.
That's going to be a sticking point for me. It's always going to be. But everything that I've said about this book that had to happen, happened. What happened in this finale was inevitable. It had to happen this way. I don't believe I could say it was surprising, though. There was no surprises in this book to me. Only, the slow, horrible, like, oh, no, don't, oh. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm not going to deny that I would have liked either some more questions answered here or a stronger shock, because there was no real surprises for me here. I was like, yeah, this is the way this has to work out. Because
yeah, but it's been such a roller coaster ride. I feel like this book is like the Holiday Inn. Best surprises, no surprise.
Amazing.
Speaking of places that'll kill you.
Oh, that's a callback, kids. Wow, yeah. This book did a lot, and I recommend this series as a whole. When they collect this, I'm like, this is messed up. You should read this, but this is messed up.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. I felt I actually felt like there was like we had been through much by the time we got to this issue. There was no winning ending.
Yeah.
And so that they didn't do anything surprising. They just carried it through. I mean, I felt like this was more of an epilogue than an ending.
Yes, that's fair.
I felt like it really ended with the last issue, and this is the epilogue, and I'm fine with that because it gave me a little bit of narrative closure. And yeah, this book has been a tough, rewarding ride. This is what horror should be.
Absolutely.
And this is the type of horror that a comic can tell that's damn near impossible in any other media form.
Hard agree. This is definitely and to see Scotty Young, who people take Scotty Young for a lot of things. First of all, they think he's a humor artist, and they think he's an artist predominantly. But for him to bring the horror hard, unflinching, never looking away from it, never softening the blow, I'm really impressed with this work from him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know why I started reading it. All I know is once I did, I was hooked.
Oh, I know why. Who was that genius who recommended this book to you? Who was that? It's a tall guy, super attractive. I can't remember. Anyway.
Yeah, somebody who just loves horror. Oh, yeah, so it couldn't be you.
Nice try. I am open to things. I mean, I'll even read a book with a zombie or a vampire in it if I have to. Like I said, I appreciate that Dracula issue of Winter Guard, but
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think that this was a good end to an amazing run.
Yep.
I mean, I think even this stack. What's interesting is Marvel put a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, they did.
But it wasn't the stuff that's going to bring me back. I'm coming back to the comic shop for DC and Independence right now.
I'm coming back for a number of. I mean, like I said, I felt I wanted Winter Guard to stick the landing. There's a number of things that Marvel is doing that I do enjoy. Jed MacKay, whenever he's writing Black Cat, is worth seeing. There's a woman who's working on Spider-Woman, Carla Pacheco, I believe, who's got some really amazing dialogue. The challenge is when these connect with the plots, when it's strong enough that, it's not one, it's like when they say at the gym, don't skip leg day. It's like, okay, yeah, you worked up the upper body, but did you skip leg day, though? Did you, though? And having a more balanced thing has been something that Marvel's been struggling with in recent months, I won't lie. But, I mean, they also put out that murderous Black Panther book the other week.
Yeah, they did.
It's fire. It's so good. It's like,
yep.
Oh, my God, it's so good. I didn't expect it to be that good. And I know John Ridley's a great writer and all, but yeah, he pulled out all the stops.
Yeah. So,
it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, but you're right. It's been a little up and down. I mean, this has also been just a weird week for comics, right? They're trying to bring back comic conventions, and we're seeing what happens.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of like. It's just truly interesting to me because I just, going to San Diego Comic-Con and realizing. And really coming face to face with the problem being so much bigger than the con itself was both eye-opening and not surprising because that's kind of in the tail of the tape. The tail of the tape has really been about supply chains, whether they be supply chains of goods or supply chains of human assets. So it makes sense that the problem would be something connected to the comic convention, but not the convention itself.
It's interesting you say that because I learned the supply chain thing personally. Project Wildfire was supposed to be in stores on 11/24th. It's not. Not because I didn't turn it in on time, not because the artist didn't, the letter didn't, color didn't, publisher didn't. Everybody did what they were supposed to do, but the printer didn't have any paper because the paper is on a boat outside of San Pedro and can't get off the frickin' boat.
Wow.
So, now Project Wildfire #1 will theoretically be in stores December 22nd. I hope, but I don't know. And with the supply chain, that makes, if people are like, oh, wow, we sold out, can we get a reorder? Maybe. I don't know. It's not that I don't want to sell you the book. It's not that the publisher doesn't want to sell you the book. But paper is paper. We we can't theoretically make Weyerhaeuser or whoever manufacture the paper any differently or faster because of supply chain problems. Everything is interconnected, and COVID is disrupting everything, and it's not getting better.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's going to, I mean, the irony is I had the same thing happen this morning. I opened an email for a book that I'm working on, and the whole thing is like, you know, can we get the book out by Juneteenth? And I don't think we can.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's not about when we turn stuff in. It really comes down to all of these supply chain issues. And even if we do get it out, we don't know what Juneteenth is going to look like. It's like there are people who are trying to get books out for Comic-Con special edition, right?
Yeah.
You know, so you do all the work, you get it out for special edition, then you realize that the vendor profile is not what you need it to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there is literally too much uncertainty to be doing anything under the wire right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm done with Project Wildfire #2. Will you see it in what's now going to be February? I sure as heck hope so, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and Hannibal Tabu, head comics reviewer at Bleeding Cool. We're sorry we don't have better news for you. Cold comforts are all we have in stock. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back here hopefully next Friday. I've left replays on, so if there are parts of this that you'd like to share on the internet, please feel free to. We so appreciate your time. We so appreciate you being here. Please join the It's Complicated Club, which I forgot to put on this room because I was in a hurry. But you can find the It's Complicated Club on my profile as I believe the first club there. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back. And please be safe. Please wear your masks. Please get vaccinated. Please get your booster. And, you know, if you can stay in because it's wild out there.
Yep.
All right. We will see you next time then.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Take care. Bye.